of the team members did mention that we'll be hosting the Under 20 Africa Cup and we'll invite you then.
So you
And I
were
said,
in
okay.
contact with them.
I've always been in contact. Yes.
Hi everyone, welcome back to a new video, and today's guest is Rudraksh Vikram. Rudraksh is a polyglot, which means he can speak over 7 languages. And I met Rudraksh during the Under 17 FIFA World Cup, which happened in India. I was with the Spanish team and Rudraksh was with the Niger team. Niger is a country in Africa which speaks French, and that's how he ended up with the Niger team. And today, currently, Rudraksh is living in UAE and he is studying economics. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. Hi, Rudraksh. Welcome to my podcast, The Language Experience. How are you?
I Lakshay, doing very well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Oh, so this is the second time we are recording. But anyway, you can introduce yourself one more time. Who is Rudraksh Vikram?
I am Rudraksh. I am a part-time student of economics and politics. I work in marketing and I'm also a polyglot. I've been learning languages for about 8 years now.
So for people who don't know, can you explain what is a polyglot?
A polyglot is someone who can speak multiple languages and with a decent degree of proficiency, not just being able to speak a few words or phrases. I would say a polyglot would be fluent in a few languages, say 4 or 5, and would have at least an intermediate level in one or two of them.
Okay. And how many languages do you speak, Rudraksh?
I can claim to speak 7. That's what I say when someone asks me how many languages I speak. I say 7. But then again, it depends on how people count. According to some people, I'd be able to speak 10 or 11, and according to some, just 7, or maybe even just 6. But I say
Okay.
7.
But can you tell what languages are those? First, start by telling Indian languages and then non-Indian languages.
The Indian languages are Hindi, Tamil, and Bengali, and English if you count English as one of them. And non-Indian languages would be French, Spanish, and German. These are the 7 languages that I claim to be able to speak. And I can read Portuguese. Not speak the language, but I can read it. I know some Arabic, still learning the language. I know some Punjabi as well. And I also tried learning Bulgarian. I know a few words in the language, but I still have to learn more.
All right. So you know Tamil because you are Tamil. You know Bengali because you were born in Calcutta.
Yes.
Then you know Hindi because you live in Delhi NCR. So Hindi, English because all of
Right.
us we went to private school, so we have to speak in English.
Yeah.
And the other languages, we have to learn them. Your European languages, Spanish, French. So I want to know, how did you start with French? Because I think French was the first one, and then came the others. So how, when,
Yes.
why did you learn? I had my own reasons. My reason was football. What was your reason?
I had to pick a third language in school when I was in class 5. Usually it's done in class 4, but for me it was class 5. And I was given options between French, German, and Sanskrit. Most of my friends went with French, and I did as well. I don't remember why I decided to go for French, but that was the language I chose. And initially, it was easy because it was just a few words, basic sentences. So I was doing well in class, but after a while, it became difficult, and I was almost failing my exams. In class 8, at the end of it, we have the option of choosing between Hindi
Hindi and
and
third language.
the third language that we've chosen, because we don't have 3 languages after class 8. We have to go with 2. And I chose French simply because I knew it would be easier for me to go with French because of the amount of effort and time that is required. Hindi, because most students were already comfortable with the language, they went to go with it. But I know that if you want a decent score in a language, it would be easier for you to go with French than with Hindi because the the volume of literature and the content that you have to study in Hindi is much higher than that of in French. That's why I went with French. But I was struggling in school. It was not easy. I was almost failing my exams in class 9. And I decided to change my approach because at that point I was already speaking 4 languages: Hindi, Tamil, English, Bengali. It was never a problem for me to learn any of these languages. So I wondered why French was that difficult. And I look back on the way I learned the other four languages, and I realized that the way I was learning French is nothing like how I learned the other four. I wasn't using the language to speak to anyone. I was not listening to songs. I was not watching movies. It was just coming to a classroom, memorizing lists of vocabulary, and mugging up conjugation tables, learning rules that you could apply to things in general, and then looking at the exceptions and keeping that in mind. It was not a fun and engaging way to learn languages.
Do you think that's because that's how we are forced to learn a third language in school? Because I just recently made a video about this topic where how they're lying to us when they say they are teaching a language, but in reality they don't really teach you. The only thing that is happening is the writing part. And if we go back, if when we were kids, we never learned a language by writing it. We learned by listening and then talking in that language to our parents, to our friends, or to our to our immediate environment. But in schools, it does not happen.
That is true. We don't learn languages, at least in most institutions, the way we should be. We, we all have this mark on our CVs or our profiles that yes, we can speak a language. It's something that looks good on paper, but that proficiency or that skill of actually being able to communicate in a language is absent. And I think it was because of the way we are taught languages. We'll just be taught what's going to be there in exams, and we're just made to prepare for it. I do not know about institutions, government-run institutions like Alliance Française or Cervantes. I hope that they're better, although my experience with Alliance hasn't been great, but I've only been there a few times and I haven't attended classes. I've just talked to students of the institution. It's a formal way of learning. Again, you're learning vocabulary list, you're memorizing conjugation tables, which in my opinion isn't a good way to learn. You're not engaging with the language, you're not having fun with the language, which in most cases you would if you were to learn a language as your native tongue.
But if given an option, uh, let's say if you want to learn a language in a university as a certificate or your graduation, be honors, or go to Alliance or Cervantes or Max Muller, which one would you prefer? Because I have been to Cervantes, I know, and at the same time, I was studying Spanish at Delhi University, so I know the difference, what works, what does not work. But what is your opinion? I know you never went to an institute, you were learning languages on your own. But if given a choice,
I've been to an institute once, Delhi University, for a short period. Given a choice, I personally would always go for self learning because that is the most efficient way
no,
for me to learn.
between an institute or university.
Between an institute or a university,
Yeah.
I think an institute would be better because at a university, it would also depend on what your goals are. If you're looking for an academic interest, if you have an academic interest and you want to achieve something academically, I think a university would help you because you will be studying literature and a lot of things that a normal language learner would not come across. If your goal is to just gain proficiency in a language, being able to speak in that language, talk to people, or use it for work, I think an institution would be better because you'll be spending less time at an institution and you have a little more freedom as well because you're not obligated to sit for classes and study a particular course and then pass an exam. You can directly go for an exam. So you can have a combination of a formal institution and self learning, then sit for your exam and get the level that a certificate in level that you're trying to achieve.
True, true, true. Now, let's change the topic a bit. Let's talk about where did we meet Rudraksh?
We met at the FIFA Under 17 World Cup. The official draw was when we first met in Mumbai, even though we're from the same city. We live in the same city, but we met in Mumbai, and that was the first time where we got to know each other.
Yes, yes. For people who don't know, I was with the Spanish team. Rudraksh was with the Niger team. Niger is a country which is bordering Nigeria and it is a French speaking country. And that's how Rudraksh ended up with them. So, Rudraksh, how was your experience? I had my experience, it was fun. It was till date one of the best experiences that I've ever had in my life. How was your experience? How was the Niger team? How was the tournament for you? And overall, how was it?
For me as well, I'd say it was one of the best experiences I've had so far in life. And it was great. The work was demanding and stressful, particularly during the World Cup. Then it was also something that is like a once in a lifetime opportunity, working with all these teams, and you're surrounded by people from different backgrounds and cultures. You get to learn more than just about your work. You get to learn about the the diversity that's there in the team. You have different religions, different languages. It's not just your team that you're interacting with.
Yeah,
You're obviously interacting with other teams as well. My team was a French speaking country, but then they're from Africa. They have their own regional languages. So that those regional languages have an influence on the way they speak their language and even the vocabulary. I mentioned in the last video that they used a particular word for SIM card, which I was not aware of. And I talked about it with a friend of mine who is a French national living in Thailand, and he had no idea that that was also a word used for a SIM card.
it
So
happens
you
in
get to
Spanish
learn
also.
things like that.
It happens in
Yes,
Spanish
and
also, where if I use a certain word in a word that is used in Latin America, which is a little the Spanish that is used in Latin America is a little American English influenced, but the Spanish from Spain is not. So there'll be a lot of words that are English that are made into Spanish, but a person who's from Spain has never heard that word.
yes, I think carro is one of them.
Carro,
Coche would
yes.
be
Yes, yes.
coche in
Coche.
Spain.
Coche is car in Spain, but in Latin America it is carro.
Yeah, and some words have completely different meanings. It
Yes.
can be inappropriate even.
Exactly. A name like Concha in Argentina would mean a very different thing. So yeah, you have those words. Same language, same words, but different meaning in different countries. True. True, true. I know.
You
And
get to learn
overall,
that as well.
I remember I've seen your photos where you were doing translations for the official match day -1 interviews of the managers and of the players. How is that? Because I also did that for the Spanish team, and I was
Hmm.
nervous. I was so nervous. My palms were sweaty. I fear that if I make a mistake, there are 20 cameras recording me and 30 photographers. I'll be killed in that moment if I make a mistake. I did make few mistakes initially, but after a while I got comfortable. How was that?
I cannot say that I wasn't nervous, but I was not too nervous. I had, somewhat, in some ways, had like a vaccine or something for me in school, and the events that I participated in school, I had to speak in front of an audience. So it was more difficult for me back in school, even though the stakes were much lower. But then that prepared me for what was to come at the World Cup. And I did not think much about the cameras or how many people would be watching me. I just went there and did my job. So at times, I would even on camera talk with the manager and clarify, sorry, the coach, and clarify what he exactly meant, which does not look good on my part. But then I wanted to get the translation right, the
Yes.
interpretation correct. So I would ask him questions, which would, as I said, not make me look good, but then it did not make me that nervous that I would completely avoid doing something like that or fumble at that moment. And it was, yes, it was something because all eyes are on you and you have to interpret the messages, not just from the journalist, but also from
From the
the person you're talking to, the coach, the player, whoever it is.
And if your team lost, it
There.
was more pressure because the managers, the coaches are not, the players are not in a good mood,
Yeah,
and even
they're
you're
not
not
in
happy
the
because you're
right
part of
mood.
the team. For people who don't know, we were the team liaison officer. We were the first point of contact for the national teams, and obviously we knew the language, so we were also doing the interpretation for them. And if the team lost, you are also sad. Managers are sad. They are unhappy. And at that time, you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to make anybody angry. So yeah, it was a lot of pressure for me. After a while, after reaching your quarterfinals, I think I left. There was a guy Diego from Brazil. Even though they speak Portuguese in Brazil, he also knew Spanish, so he started doing it. And I felt pressure off my shoulders. Thank God I don't have to do it anymore. I did those little interviews in the mix zone, but yeah,
Right.
some experience. Yes, yes. But any other story, any other peculiar story from the tournament? How were the players? How was the dressing room atmosphere? How were you guys in the hotel? Because we both were in Kochi, I remember. Spanish team had their
Yeah.
own way of having fun. There's a lot of kids together in one room playing PlayStation, or knocking on each other's door and running away, or maybe uh, coming out in the bathroom and then pulling each other's bathrobe. So that was their way of having fun.
Niger, the team, I think one player did have, well, they were all just resting most of the time. And it wasn't PlayStations or pulling each other's bathrobes, but I've seen them in the dressing room, in the bus. They were very jovial and loud. They would talk a lot. They would laugh and sing. There, it was almost like a ritual for them, singing and dancing in the dressing room, in the bus. And it was not a normal song because you have a particular tune and the way you sing songs when you listen to pop music or something like that. It was a different kind of song. I don't know if it was peculiar to Africa or it's just something that they do to boost team morale. They would all sing and participate. It was something like those, the, the 300 years ago, shanties, the sailors in ships, they would sing songs.
The folk
So
song.
something like that.
The
Yeah,
folk song.
something like that.
Okay.
Something like that, yes. The dance was also the dances were very different. I'd say maybe peculiar to Africa, specific to Africa, the way they danced. It was fun. It was something to experience. And I also joined them in one of their sessions in the dressing room. I don't remember in which city that was, but it was a different experience culturally being
Got
around with them.
Got And then 2 years pass by. Rudrash
Yes.
Vikram is now invited by the Niger team to Africa, to Niger, for the Under 20 Africa Cup of Nations. So tell me
Yes.
about that. How's the experience? Was it a shock to be invited by the Niger team for a major tournament?
I wasn't really expecting it. One of the team members did mention that we'll be hosting the Under 20 Africa Cup and we'll invite you then.
So
And
you
I
were
said,
in
okay.
contact with them.
I've always been in contact. Yes. I've been in contact, in touch with the players, with the coaches. I've been in touch with them and we still talk, of course. So one day the manager messaged me on WhatsApp and he asked me, would I go there if I were invited? And they sent me the tickets and everything. I said, yes, of course. If you're sending the tickets and arranging the stay, then I don't think I should have a problem with it. I went to sleep and the next day I checked my email and I received my tickets for the following day. So I barely had any time to
Prepare.
pack or to prepare
Yeah.
for the trip. And I did not even have a visa with me. I did not know how I would be leaving India. I
I want to
got
know
in
the
touch with
visa
them
story.
again.
I want to know the visa
I got
story.
in touch with the manager. I told him that I don't have a visa and I will have to quickly get it because without that I cannot leave. They said it's not a problem. Just come. We'll give you visa on arrival. It's not an issue. But then I would not be allowed to leave India without a visa.
Yes, yes.
So I went to the embassy. I told the manager about it that I'm going to the embassy to get a visa. He got in touch with the president of the association. President made a call to the embassy in India, and I was given a visa in about 3 to 4 hours. Normally, it takes 3 to 5 days. And I happened to know the person who stamped and signed the visa for me. I had met him earlier as well during the World Cup.
He was somebody, he was the person who was coming for the games in Kochi.
Yes. I think you'd have seen him. He was a tall man. And he also
I'm sure.
participated in one of the. What were we doing then? It was some
MCA
Christian
meeting, I
event.
think.
You know?
Match coordination
No,
meeting.
no. The hotel had arranged some event.
Oh, the
They
cherry.
were making cakes, and yes,
Yeah,
yes. So what was
the
that?
during Christmas, so everybody gets down in the lobby, and then you have to mix the alcohol with the cake base. Yeah, some event was happening. Yeah, yeah, we
It
all
was
remember.
yes.
Yeah,
So
I remember.
even he was there. You may have seen him there. He was a
Yeah,
tall
yeah.
person from Niger.
Got got.
He was the one in Delhi who stamped and signed my visa.
Okay,
So it
so
was a
you
familiar
already knew
face there.
so many contacts, and you already knew people at the embassy. So that's great, and I'm sure they love you if they're inviting you. They're giving you flight tickets, and then they're arranging you the visa. And
We
then
have a,
when
we developed a good relationship over the period during the World Cup, and they always treated me as a member of the team.
mm,
Even when I was away, I once did not have time to get back uh, during dinner, on time for dinner, and they had sent me food to my room. They arranged for that, and it was just so I could barely finish all of it. It was too much, but then they took care of all that. That if I am away, they made sure that my meals were taken care of. That that was said. We still have a good relationship.
when you reached Africa.
When I reached Africa, that was, of course, a different experience. When I had to go through Ethiopia, so I flew from Delhi to Ethiopia and Ethiopia to Niger. And we underestimate how large Africa really is, because on the globe it really isn't that big, but in reality it's a massive continent. Took me a lot of time to get from Ethiopia to Niger, even though on the map it didn't look like much of a distance.
How
It
long was it like?
I don't remember, but it was a few hours,
Okay.
3 or 4 hours.
Okay.
It was a long flight. And I got down there, it was intimidating because I did not know where to go or whom to get in touch with. I was just told that there would be someone there at the airport to receive me, but I did not know what to do. And then when I started going through the security and all the questions that I was being asked, where are you going? Why are you here? They understood why I'm here. I told them for the Under 20 Africa Cup, but they asked me where I'm staying, where is my hotel? And I did not have a reservation. And probably that is a requirement, as it is in many countries when you're going there. I did not have a reservation. I said I'm with the team, and they did not really understand what that's supposed to mean. There was someone from the team who had come, and he had then helped me. He escorted me. He let the people know that I will be staying with the team, and I've been invited by the team for the tournament. That made it a little easy for me getting through all of that. Otherwise, I would have had to struggle a little bit. I don't. Maybe I may even have been in trouble because I did not have a reservation.
Yeah, yeah.
But then, okay, it's,
And
it
then
was a
during the
different experience.
tournament.
During the tournament, I was with the team, and this time I had no responsibilities. I could do whatever I wanted to. So mostly, I was just chilling with the team, with my friends, and with the players. I also made a few new friends because there had been new players that were in the team, and some players that were away. They could not come back. They had to play with their clubs, or they were in different countries. And I learned more about Niger, of course, being in the country, but also because I had more time to spend with the players. I learned about their backgrounds and what kind of families they're from. And also, I learned that India has much more of an influence than I earlier imagined. Bollywood is big in Africa. And even though it was a French speaking country, there were TV series dubbed in Hindi. So I had Jodha Akbar there, which I saw dubbed in French. I was not expecting that. I thought at most we'll have French subtitles and the audio would be in Hindi, but no, they had dubbed the TV series in French.
That's a soft
And
power. That's a soft power.
yes,
Bollywood.
they know many Bollywood actors. But even when the team was in India, they asked me if I can arrange a meeting with Amitabh Bachchan or this actor. They took so many names that I could not even recognize most of them. I'm not someone who's versed with Bollywood or pop culture in general, but then it was sort of embarrassing for me that they know more about my country than I do myself. And there I set up Netflix for one of the players, and he was elated. He was just so many TV series and movies to watch. He was really happy with that. And one player even knows some Hindi songs. He had sang the songs during the World Cup in India. I recorded him then, and then in Niger again, I recorded him singing Kal Ho Na Ho and the song Humko Hami Se Chura Lo
Do
Dil
you
Mein
have the
Kahin Ki
video? You
Fasad.
have the video with you?
I have the videos. I'll share them.
Send me. I want that. I
I'll
want that.
share them.
And how was Niger? How was Niger as a country? Anything specific that you saw that really surprised you, or something that you felt is very similar to India?
Hmm.
Because I remember you shared a couple of
Mm,
videos on Instagram, and
mm.
so I want to know how was your experience, because Instagram can tell you a very different story.
It's it is a different culture. I wouldn't say very similar. They are an Islamic country, so you can expect the regular Islamic rituals and traditions being followed there. And their food is somewhat similar to that of ours in the curries and all that they prepare. Otherwise, it is a different country, different culture, and Niger, they're a developing country,
Hmm.
so you don't have tall skyscrapers and buildings like you would expect in other countries, developed countries. Then that's expected. Few countries have those than countries that do not.
Hmm, 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 hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So now let's go back to languages. Talked
Mhm.
about our football experience, your Niger experience in the Africa Cup of Nations. You started French because you were in school. Then how did Spanish and German and then Arabic came into picture? Let's start with Spanish. How and when did you decide to learn Spanish?
Okay, so Spanish. After I changed my approach to learn French, I was interested in trying a few other languages. I was learning on Duolingo first, and they have a long list of languages that you can choose. I tried Spanish, German, Italian, Dutch. I remember I tried many, but Spanish was the one I committed to after French. I was learning on Duolingo, then online. I found a language partner,
But
and
was
it
Duolingo
just
even
became a
helpful?
thing.
Was Duolingo even
Du-
helpful? Because again, I've made a video on Duolingo that how the app does not work. It's very repetitive, and the app will only limit to you to that box, to that vocabulary that they teach you, and that's it. Anything outside that, you're gone, and you cannot have a conversation with Duolingo. Like you cannot speak.
no, you
Yeah,
definitely cannot. You cannot.
right.
Duolingo is good for the basics.
Maybe an introduction to a
Earlier,
language.
yes, earlier when I used to start learning a language, and if the language for that, the course for that language is available on Duolingo, I would start with Duolingo. It did not go well with Arabic. That Arabic course at that time wasn't good. I don't know about now. It was a decent application, a free version if you're looking for something that can help you learn a language for free. It is a decent introduction to a
But I
language,
would
but
not say
just
you
that.
can learn. Like I
You
still,
cannot, no, you will
yeah.
not reach proficiency with Duolingo. It can only give you an introduction. You will have the basics arranged with Duolingo, but you will have to supplement with other resources. Rather, I'd say Duolingo would be a supplement to your learning
True, true, true.
because
Yes,
it
it
is
can.
not a standalone course. You
Yeah,
cannot learn the language with just Duolingo.
Duolingo can be an add-on to your already course that you have applied for, but not the only source. Yes, true, true. Yeah,
It definitely isn't the only way of the only source. You cannot learn languages
true, true.
through just Duolingo. I started with Duolingo, then I moved to YouTube. I supplemented with YouTube. I'd use YouTube and a few other resources. There's an application which at that time was free called Linguist,
Then,
Lingvist. They would use spaced repetition to teach languages, and they'll help you learn vocabularies. I learned about 2,000 or 3,000 words through Linguist. And there is something called the frequency list of vocabulary.
hmm.
The first 5,000 words, the 5,000 most common words, make up, I think, over 91% of
Yes, yes. Even
what.
I read the study where your first 1,000 words make the 91% of the conversation that we have every day.
Yes, so it's useful to learn vocabulary based on a vocab list that is arranged by frequency of the words. in the language that you're trying to learn. It's much easier to reach a decent level and be conversational in a language when you're following that approach than just randomly learning words. For example, let's say a vase. How often do you use that word? Or a microphone. How often do you use the word microphone? But
But I
food,
would be using water
eat,
frequently.
yes, food, eat, drink, water, walk, or
Yes.
do something. These are much more common. It's better to target these
I've been
words.
trying the same approach with my students where I tell them learn the first 1,000 common words, and then your conversation would become 10,000 times easier because
Yes.
these are your recurring words in a sentence or in your expression. So I've been trying the same approach. Still have to see results. I hope it works.
You can use these spaced repetition applications. There's one called Anki, which is popular among language learners and medical students as well
Hmm.
for their studies. And there's Linguist. I don't know if they're still paid. Still free. They were introducing paid plans back then. There is Memorize.
Memorize, yeah.
So you
But
can use all of these applications.
I
Mhm.
remember when we were doing Khelo India. So after FIFA World Cup, we got the opportunity to do the same work in Khelo India. It was a tournament. It was a national based tournament, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it was a national tournament. Yes.
Under what is it? Under 18.
It was a school game. So
Yeah,
yes, it was for school students. I don't
yeah.
think there was an age limit.
So
Anyone who was in school.
everybody was given a state, and I remember during the pre-tournament preparations, you were talking to somebody using an app. What was the app? And at that time you were learning Spanish. Yeah.
I was learning Spanish. It was not an app. We had met on a Facebook group.
Okay.
There are many communities online where you can find language partners, and there are also apps. There's one app called Speaky. There's one called Tandem. You can find language partners there. I found him on a Facebook group. He was learning English and I was learning Spanish. So we decided to have a language exchange. Normally, someone who wants to learn English would go for a native English speaker, someone who's from the United States, from the UK, Australia, Netherlands, New Zealand, no, Netherlands. But he
I
decided
think they would
to
still
have an
take a
exchange with
person
me.
from Netherlands speaking English rather than an Indian.
Probably,
Yeah.
yes. Because you want a good language partner. It's very natural for that, for someone to want a native speaker because you're trying to learn a language and it's better to have a native speaker than someone who's a second or a third language. For someone for whom it's a second or third
Third
language, it's
language. Yes.
naturally a better option to go for a
How
native.
hard was it to find a partner and to convince them that I'll teach you English, even though it's not my native language?
Honestly, not difficult. I've not had an issue finding language partners. When I was learning German and Arabic, I I will still be learning Arabic. I don't have the proficiency that I want in Arabic or even in German. I found language partners who wanted to learn Hindi.
Hmm.
So that obviously made it easier for me. And you'd also see that if you find a language partner who's learning a language like Hindi, they would be learning vocabulary that you don't use
Yeah,
every day.
exactly. We what we speak is a mixture of Urdu, English, and
Urdu,
Hindi,
Hindi, and English, yes.
and the one that they want to learn is pure Hindi,
They
which
actually,
we can't.
the person I was talking to, two people from Germany, they wanted to learn Hindi to talk to people, to communicate.
Hmm.
So, that is when a formal institution will not help you because they are probably not going to teach you colloquial language.
Yeah, true,
They're
true,
going to
true.
teach you formal
With
language.
Hindi, I would 100% say yes. With Hindi, I can say yes. Uh, if you want to communicate, maybe a institute where they teach you Hindi won't help you because the Hindi that will teach you is not being used at all.
Yes. We don't say हमें इस वस्तु का प्रयोग करना है. That
Yes.
is very formal and very unusual.
And yeah,
Even with
unfortunately.
Arabic, there are different dialects. If you go for standard Arabic, this is what standard Arabic would sound if you were a
Okay.
Hindi speaker.
Being
प्रयोग
very
करना है.
formal and a
Very
word
formal.
like I would never
This
use. Nobody would use a vastu. The word
no
vastu.
one says that.
Yeah.
No one
Cheese.
says that.
We say
This
cheese.
Yes, it's standard Arabic. They say only politicians and newspapers.
Hmm.
That's where
Yeah.
you're going to
Yes.
come across standard Arabic. So for Hindi and even other language, I don't know about Spanish. I do know French. There are some words like je kiffe, something that you really like to do. I take that. As I say in English, I take that. So you can say je kiffe in French, but
Like,
then it doesn't literally.
but with
Yeah,
Spanish, you can use that language that we learn in institutes on the street, but then you have to pick up few words here and there. That's it. A few words here and there, be a little more. You have to cut short those words. Like a university will only become uni, a polygrapher will only become a boli, and your PlayStation will only become a play. So Spanish is
right, right. Yes, somewhat similar with. I don't know about Allianz, but my online experience. Generally, if you're learning from an app or an institution, it's more formal. So
yes,
when you come across language partners and they're learning in using a book or some formal instruction, they'll they'll be using vocabulary that you may not be familiar with, and similarly with them, you may be using vocabulary that they may not be using on a regular basis. The German language partner that I had, he said in one of our exchanges कि मैंने शरणार्थियों के साथ काम किया, something like that. I do not know what a शरणार्थी.
what was that?
That's the refugees.
Refuge.
I We would just say refugees. Sharanarthi is not a word that I had ever used,
Never.
or even now I don't use
Maybe
that
on
word.
Hindi news channels you might hear this word, but not.
Yes, in Hindi news you will hear that. In newspapers you'll be able to read this word, but daily conversation
You.
we don't really use the word Sharanarthi. It's more formal.
Hmm.
We just say refugee.
So how good?
So
How good did you become in? Sorry to cut you. What were you saying?
in German,
No, no, no.
yes,
So.
that's something about language exchanges. So
Hmm.
you get to learn these things as well. The differences that we have in in the way we learn languages, that will that helps you understand your goals better. If someone wants to learn languages at an institution, then they can expect that their language is going to be more formal, so more apt for work or academia,
Yeah.
but not for daily conversation or for traveling or understanding their culture.
But I think that it'll vary from language to language. I think.
Yes, and also institute to institute.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Institute to,
So how good did you become in Spanish? What level can you claim that you can speak and
I
understand?
would say I'm a B1 or a
B1.
between a B1 and a B2,
Okay.
because I'm fairly comfortable expressing myself in the language and talking to people.
And you're able to
But
understand all the accents.
I'm not sure if I understand all the accents because I've spoken to people from Spain, from Argentina, and Chile.
Hmm.
So I was able to. Argentina was a bit difficult for me. The way they speak, I
Yeah,
still
yeah.
do not easily
Yeah,
understand.
the double L usually in Spanish is a Y sound, but for them it's a
But
sh
then
sound.
it's a sh
So,
sound.
yeah,
Yes.
me llamo, me llamo. But the
Yes.
same thing would be me llamo in Spain.
Yes. So that was there, and a few other differences as well. And I still cannot distinctly identify which accent is from
It's
which
from which
country.
country? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I probably don't understand accents that well, but then I am familiar because I've watched TV series
So you
like
learned the
Narcos, Money
Castellano.
Heist.
You learned the Castellano.
Yes, I started with Castellano. I think Castellano is what I can say I
So
can speak.
Castellano is Spanish from Spain.
Yes, Spanish from Spain. And my accent also developed through the TV series that I had been watching. So it is probably a mix of Castellano and some South American accents because
Uh,
I imitate a lot when I learn languages.
that's
So
how you
imitation.
That's how you learn. That's how you learn. I did the same thing when I was in my second year or first year. The first time I was able to understand was when Andres Iniesta won the European Player of the Year, and he said few things, and I was so happy. Like the reason that I started learning Spanish was so that I could understand these people and I can understand what Iniesta just said. He was thanking all his family, his friends, and then I was watching this documentary of Spain winning the 2010 World Cup, and Javi would use this word increíble, and I picked up that word. Increíble means incredible, and I did the same thing. I was imitating Iniesta, Javis, and all those players. Okay, he says this, he uses this phrase, he uses this idiom. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to somehow put it in my conversation. And that's how I was learning, because at that time I was not going to Cervantes. I was only relying on Delhi University, and I always felt that I was being limited by the university, by the classroom. So this Delhi University brings me to my next, like we segue to our next part, which is German. French happened, Spanish happened, then German. Uh, you joined my college, Faculty of Arts in DU. How was the experience there? How was our college, uh, and the story behind it? I know eventually you left. You left after the first year. Tell me about it.
Yeah, officially, I left after the first year, but in reality, it was only after a few months I stopped attending classes. I wouldn't say that the experience was bad. The thing is that when you're in a classroom, you have the teacher or the professor has to take everyone with them, and they also have to follow the curriculum that they've been given. So, I can't really blame the teachers, the professors,
So
because
you already
an
knew German
institution,
before joining DU.
yes, yes, I already spoke German. I had learned it. And even though I had marks deducted because I did not have German in class 12th,
Yeah,
so in Delhi University, in GRS at least, the department where we were, they do that. I think 5% is what
yeah,
they
5%.
subtract
We did not
if
have
you
the
do
rule
not
when
have.
I enrolled. We did not have that rule, but
Okay, okay.
eventually,
So when I enrolled, they had that rule. And what that meant that
which is
is,
very weird. Which is very weird, because it does not matter, the things that they teach you in school will never come into the picture.
it is weird because even though they subtract 5%, they will still start from the very beginning, from the basics. And they
Yeah.
have to because teachers
Yes.
know that there are students in the classroom who have not had German in school and who are learning German for the very first time. So to have that rule, maybe they probably had some reasoning behind it. Subtracting 5%, students still come there. Some students already know German, some do not. So that creates a divide. Students who had German in school and who have not had German in school. Those who have had German in school, they're going to have an easier time earlier.
Earlier,
And
exactly earlier. Because I had people who were already going to Cervantes, they had A2 level. But that thing neutralized after 3 months. After 3 months, all of us had the same level. It was, you have to build from this point, because they knew few things that we were learning. But after a while, if you're good at it, you were doing better. If you were not, it was gone.
hmm,
In German, was it the same scenario?
yes, I think only one or two students had German before, and that was a problem. The ones who had German were able to do well in class, and the first few months are a waste of time for them because they're just being taught things that they already know.
Yes.
And I was someone who did not like that. So eventually, I know that everyone would get to the same point if they put in the effort, the ones who do not speak the language. But I still continued to learn more and more, even during class. If they were teaching something that I already knew, I would pull out my phone and start learning things that I don't know. So I still got better than the students who were just learning. I had more than just a few months of learning with me. So even though it was not intense and consistent, I knew the language to a fair degree, and
So
that
was it
gave me an
frustrating?
advantage. It was frustrating. That is the reason, one of the reasons why I left, because apart from there being a divide, there are also students in the class who are just not interested in learning the language. They're just there because they have to get a degree. And the language is not something that you can just study for the last moment and pass your exams.
I
That approach doesn't work with
Yeah, it
languages.
happened with me in my class as well, because out of 40, 38 had no idea why have they taken Spanish or language for that matter. Some wanted French, ended up in Spanish because French is the first language that is where the students flock and the seats are finished.
Well, yes.
Then comes I think German, and then comes Spanish in our department. I'm talking about GRS department. So a lot of students did not want to learn Spanish. They ended up there. A lot of kids joined because uh, after school you have to do a graduation, and doing a graduation in language is the easiest way for them. They think they learn a language and then they also have a degree. And for some, they only came to live the DU life, which they saw in Bollywood. Uh, those North Campus colleges, going to the fest, the quintessential uh, story that has been told to us by Bollywood, they wanted to live that. So it was a very bad experience for me. I would not, uh, be politically correct here and say no, it was fine. The teacher has to take care of everybody. It was bad because imagine only two kids want to learn, two or maybe maximum three or four, and the teacher is putting in the effort. And now when I am a teacher, if I'm taking private classes and if the other person is not interested, I cannot teach. It is so hard for me to teach. Imagine a professor who has a PhD in Spanish is there to teach you, and 98% of the class has no clue what is happening. Why? Because initially they did not pay any attention, and after a while, languages are something. It's a train. If you leave it initially, if you lag behind initially, the train is gone. You cannot catch up. You cannot catch up with the course. Why? Because now by the second year you have literature and you have to read poems and novels in that language. And if you don't know the words, how will you be able to interpret what the poem is saying or what the novel is talking about? So it became frustrating for me. And by the second year, I joined Cervantes, where I felt, firstly, we are not practicing listening activities in DU. Speaking does not happen. We are forced to speak by our teachers. Like in a good way, they force us, please speak, but kids are not able to speak. And then I joined Cervantes and then got my delays and everything because DU was not working for me at all. At all.
We did have listening sessions in class, I
Some of
remember,
them, but
in
you think that
German.
was enough? You think that was enough?
But that's definitely not enough because you need more than just listening from an audio tape. You need active listening where you're engaging with the content that you're listening to.
Yes.
There will be vocabulary that you don't understand, and you have to be serious about it. You know, in the last time we recorded, that recording didn't go well, but I talked about how watching movies and videos helped me. And every time I have a word that I don't understand, I would pause the video, write that down, find out the
Yes.
meaning of that word.
Yes.
So
That's the
now
way.
there may be words that I don't understand, I can pause. But then what if in a classroom, every student will have different words that they don't understand? So everyone cannot be pausing all the time. It will take you forever to watch the movie or the video that you're watching in class. So I definitely believe you need to put in some work outside of the classroom to be successful in learning a
Language learning.
language
Yes. You have to. You
if you're in
have
a
to.
formal institution.
You have to put in
And
the effort
that's
outside the class.
that's the problem there. The professors and teachers have to accommodate everyone. And that means that the students that are the most serious and that are not at all interested all have to sit in together and they all have to be taught together. Why would someone who's serious with the language want to drop their level down to accommodate someone who's just in the classroom because they've enrolled in the university?
Because you have
That
to do
drops the
it,
level.
and
You have to do it.
enrolling in
And you cannot
GRSS
blame
fees.
the teachers. You
Yeah,
cannot
yeah.
blame the teachers,
I
the
would never blame
professors,
the teachers. I would never.
because that's they have to take care of everyone. That's their job. They have to teach everyone. It becomes difficult for them as well. So I can understand why the level in the classroom would drop. And that's why I decided to quit. I was told we'll get to C1 in 3 years. I could see, looking at the third year students, that they were nowhere near a C1. Maybe some of them were, those who were more serious about the language. But C1 is not something that I saw myself getting to. If I had
In
only been
DU.
following what, if I had been only following what I was told to study in Delhi University. And frankly, if you're serious about learning a language and you have the right method, you can get to a C1 in easily within 2 years. Definitely, if you're spending 3 hours a day using the right resources, you will get there. B2, I say 6 to 8 months, 6 to 10 months actually.
No, Rudraksh, you are an
I know,
anomaly. You
I
are
know
an
it's a
anomaly.
a
Yeah.
very optimistic
For you
target.
speaking seven languages and reaching B2 in 10 months, you are an anomaly over here. Normally, for a normal kid, it'll take him 1.5 to 2 years easily.
It would. It would. I'm saying if you're putting in 2 to 3 hours every day, using the right resources.
Yeah.
If you're serious about
But how
learning the
many people
language, and
do you
even
know are doing it?
passively.
How many
Well,
people?
that's why I said for most people, 2 years is a more realistic target. I
Yeah.
think even for a B2, C2, C1 is a more advanced level. You can say 3 years for a C1. But I do not expect 3 years if I'm at a university studying a language full time.
But the problem over there is after a while they will not teach you the language. They expect by 1.5 years, by the third semester, we have taught you the language. Then by the fourth semester, it's all literature. It's your
That's how it should be.
it's
Honestly, that is how it should be.
but the problem that comes in DU is that by 1.5 years, 90% of the class is still struggling with basic conjugations.
That is true. You
So
have to take
what was
out time,
your
put in effort.
reason? What was the last straw for you that
For
you
me,
decided it
it
is
was
not
not
happening?
challenging. It was not challenging for me. I got an 8 plus CGPA, I think 8.13 if I remember correctly, by barely putting in any effort. It was too easy for me, and I knew I would not be learning much. We had Portuguese as an elective,
Yes, yeah.
and to be honest, the electives, I think it's not taught seriously there. The language was such a basic level, and it was how you mentioned in your video when you were teaching at a university that you were just told this is what's going to come in the exam. Be prepared for it, and you study this, you'll pass.
So when
It
I
was
was
just
teaching,
that.
yeah, the when I was teaching in a private university, language firstly it was forced upon the kids. They did not have a choice. There is no choice. You will be taught a language. You choose one, and then you'll be taught. Me, what if I don't want to learn a language? What if it's not my interest? I find a lot of people who do not want to learn a language. Firstly, it's forced, and then the teachers are not interested. Now, the combination of a private university where language is forced and teacher do not want to teach, what happens is they want the kids to go to the next year and they don't want the kid to have a back in a language. So what the teachers do, they make a worksheet which is exactly your question paper but with few changes. And
Yes.
it's a hint, this will come in the exam, idiots. Please prepare it.
Portuguese was somewhat similar at GRS. I
Yeah,
don't
even in
remember
GRS,
having
because it did not
options.
happen with me. It was bad, but not this was not the scenario.
It,
But
the
was it?
the exams were embarrassingly easy. It was almost as if they're taking an exam. It not almost. It was probably that they were taking an exam for the sake of it.
But people were still doing bad in that, right?
Yes.
I know
Yes, that is
GRS
true.
enough. I know GRS enough where kids would struggle. But
The questions,
why do you feel
the
people?
questions themselves the questions themselves had answers in them.
Yeah.
If you had a basic understanding of the language,
Mm-hmm.
it was almost as if you'll just get full marks there. Even if you had a basic understanding, it was that easy.
But why do you feel the kids were struggling? So with me in my class, we were taught from English to Spanish. Like even though we were encouraged not to translate, but at times you had to explain few things in English, few words, few adjectives in English, like introvert, extrovert. We have to explain those words in English. And in DU, it's a very homogeneous sort of a university where kids are coming from every part of the country and kids from different background. So a lot of them did not understand English, and that's why they
Yes.
were struggling. There were teachers who were doing a Hindi translation for them, but still it was hard. So in my class, we had this issue where uh, doing a
Okay.
translation from English to Spanish was challenging. Did you face the same thing in German?
That was there, yes. The teachers were trying to accommodate students because it isn't not just that Delhi University has students from different backgrounds in different parts of the country. You also have different cutoff.
Hmm.
We have reservations. So, and you can see massive differences. For the general category, it can be in the 90s, and for another category, it can be in the 70s. So, naturally, you can expect a difference in the students who have a 95% versus someone who has 75%. So that is also there, and the fact that some students don't speak English as well as some other students do. We cannot blame the students for that because everyone has a different upbringing, and the teachers. I did see that they were trying to accommodate everyone,
Hmm.
but probably what would be better is if different students are taught differently based on their capabilities.
Hmm.
You cannot expect everyone. If it's a national level tournament and you just have some athletes who've been training for 5 years and some who've been training for 10 years and some who've never trained at all. You cannot put them all together.
Hmm.
Apart from different backgrounds, you also have students who've learned German, who've not learned German, who have some experience with the language, who've learned at Max Miller. And everyone is in the same class. So it's difficult to accommodate everyone when that is the case. We have to keep that in mind. And that's what made me leave the level, not having enough. I wouldn't say competition, but I was not being pushed enough. It was way too easy for me there. And probably because of my way of learning languages. And I did not see myself learning as much as I could on my own or in a different environment in 3 years than I would have spent 3 years there. It
True.
would have been very slow for me. I frankly would have learned German, Spanish, Italian, French I already spoke. But I would have probably passed exams for all three of these languages
In
in
GRS.
those 3 years the way I was learning because we were
Hmm.
spending an entire day there. When I
Yeah, yeah.
talked about teaching a B2 in 10 months, I was talking about someone who's spending 2 to 3 hours every day. There we're spending 3, 4, 6 hours a day. If you're spending that much time learning a language and in 3 years you don't have a C1 proficiency, it is a big
So,
problem in my
so
opinion.
what I felt in GRS was the graph would go up and then it would just plateau for most of the
Hmm.
kids. You learn few things, you learn the basic, the introduction, the your hobbies, and you learn all these things that you can say, and then it would just plateau. You won't see people the graph going up in terms of communicating in a language. And yes, it is very frustrating. I had to get my degree, so I did finish it. But by the third year, I stopped going there. I was attending Cervantes happily. Attendance was never an issue back then. You could have a zero attendance and still sit in the exam. And literally, I still remember we had an oral exam where an Indian teacher and a Spanish teacher, like both spoke Spanish, but from an Indian origin and one from Spanish, was taking the exam. And a kid who was clearly struggling in Spanish could not utter a word. And the teacher was like, please कुछ बोल ले अगर मैं तेरे को marks दूंगी तो इसको दिखना चाहिए कि तूने कुछ बोला है स्पेनिश में. So even though this kid should not have cleared the exam, but was asked to speak something, so at least the teacher could give him the passing marks,
Hmm.
which is very sad for me. Not that why what is happening is why is this happening? In the end, everybody would have a BA honors in Spanish, but you'll have a massive difference. Somebody who really enjoyed the language, who had fun, versus somebody who struggled through Spanish. Let's say in terms of finding work, freelance work, or working for an MNC, which was really frustrating. Like, okay, you are printing degrees over here, but at the end, it's language is a skill, and you're destroying it for everybody.
I think there's a problem not just with languages. We can see computer science graduates in this country who cannot code.
Hmm.
I personally have helped computer science graduates with web development. I don't have a formal background in CS, but that's what I do for work, making websites, and I've helped them to learn how to make websites. I have people who are older than me who intern under me for things like
And
this.
all
That's the
these,
problem with
yeah, yeah. So I was saying all these
we're
skills.
just churning out graduates, but employers in India are not really happy with graduates. IT, in computer science, you have so many people who have an engineering degree,
But
but are
can't
still
do, can't
being
do.
trained. 8 to 10 months of training, 1 year of training after a 4 year degree,
Yes.
and then they get proper
That's what I
jobs.
don't
That's
like. That's what something that I really hate is you're printing out degrees, you're printing out certificates, diplomas, but they most of them are unemployable. There's a reason because when I put an ad, or when I tell people that I speak Spanish and I teach Spanish, uh, the first question that comes up, uh, can I get a job after this? How much money will I make? What's this,
Yes.
like the obsession with the word scope? मेरे को तो बिल्कुल समझ नहीं आता है. But the obsession scope क्या है? This obsession with, it's that if you're good at something, you will have opportunities. If you're bad at it, how do you expect? And the second problem that I face is, why is learning a language so expensive?
First part, yes, you have to be competent. We're not chasing competence. From a young age, I think we're taught either subconsciously or maybe consciously that certificates and degrees matter. So we chase pieces of paper more than what those pieces of paper represent, you
Yeah.
being competent about something. That is a problem. I do not entirely know what's the cause, and I haven't thought much about it, but I just know that this is a problem and that we have to do something about it. And about languages being expensive, probably because quality institutions are not there in the country. If you don't have quality graduates,
Hmm.
how can we expect people in the country to have institutions where you will be taught languages well? So Cervantes, Alliance Française, they're all run by
The
governments of
government of
Spain,
those countries.
France. Yes, Germany has Max Miller. So you can expect there to be quality in these institutions. But others, in school when I was learning French, I never knew what an actual French speaker sounded like.
Yeah, because you're never
Our
exposed to it.
accent, it was parler or some, the R in French is not pronounced R, it's R. So it's not parler, it's parler. Rassemblement, rendre, or, it's not Paris, it's Paris, France. We're not taught that.
Yeah.
We have different accents. And when I first listened to a French speaker, I understood nothing. And this was 5 years after learning the language. I had been learning the language for 5 years and I could not understand anything.
But do you think the teachers that are teaching in your private university, I'm not talking about the professors who have PhD, the diploma teachers, the school teachers of French, Spanish, do you think they are competent enough to teach?
I've come across a few who are competent, very
One,
few
very few, but
who are,
majority,
very few who are.
but majority aren't.
Most don't have the right accent. And the way they teach, it's just learn these conjugations, memorize
Because
these vocabulary
I have a
lists.
bunch of my classmates who are teaching, and these guys were struggling in the language, and I'm scared that they are teaching Spanish in schools and universities where it is scary that when the teachers aren't good enough in a language. And when I say being good in a language, I mean they're speaking well, they're able to understand everything. And Indians, we are champions of writing stuff. We are champions. We can write passages in English, in Spanish, or in any other language, but when it comes to speaking, we can't
We're
utter a
not
word.
good.
And these kids who could not even utter a word are now teaching, which really scares me. And that's how I made that video about Indian schools and colleges really lying to you when they say they're teaching you a language. So yeah, it's an issue here.
It is a problem. And then again, for some jobs, you need to have a degree. If it's a large organization, the HR department is going to look for papers that can prove to the management or the bureaucracy that's set up that the candidate we've hired is qualified.
But these, some of
Now,
them are masters. Some of them have done masters. Not, they are not masters, sorry, but they have done their masters in languages.
done their masters,
But
yes,
the
and they're
sad
not
part is that
working.
masters is in literature, not in the language. It's in the literature.
What I think is an advantage for our generation and for the generation that's going to learn languages in the future is that we have the internet and we have plenty of resources to learn languages on the internet. Most of the popular languages that are learned by people, you can learn for free on the internet, and you have access to quality resources for
Hmm.
free. I mean, you can listen to native speakers of your target language on YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram, and you can also compare those speakers to teachers who are not teaching that language, with that language being their first language or the native tongue.
Mhm.
I've seen plenty of speakers, even students of GRS. They've set up Instagram accounts and they start teaching languages that they themselves are learning.
Yeah.
And frankly,
It was same for me where even the second year and some of my classmates were already giving classes to school kids.
yes.
That was scary. That was scary.
And when I see those Instagram accounts, I cringe. I am frankly so disappointed also because it's not a level or the proficiency that they have is not what you'd expect from a teacher of that language.
True.
And that, I also started my own language blog. And I don't teach particular languages. I just tell you how to learn languages in general.
But
The
that was a
principles you can apply.
linguistic sort of a blog, not a language.
Yes. So, even if you're following that, I think you'll do better than going to one of these teachers.
Hmm.
Because frankly, it is really disappointing when you look at the way they are teaching and the level that they have in the language. Now, I've seen their pronunciations, and it's not even like you have an accent. It's just wrong. The pronunciation is incorrect.
Yeah. So I have my classmates horrible in the class, and now they teach. They were teaching in universities and now in school. It scares me, but anyway, I think we have talked a lot about GRS, and it is not just GRS. I would include JNU in this, equally in JNU.
Hmm.
Same scenario, and other private universities who claim that they are uh, teaching a language. By language, I mean BA honors in that language. All of them. For Spanish, you have your IFLUs, your DUN universities, and AMITIs. But I would not recommend anybody if you want to learn a language. Please, like if you really, really want to learn, don't go to any university.
Yes. Find people online, talk to them. There are
Or
good
maybe an
resources
institute.
that are
Just
available.
join the institute.
A good institute, yes. An institute and supplementing your learning with a language partner online, that's much better
Yeah.
than any of these colleges and
I think
universities.
we have ranted enough about learning languages from the wrong place. But now, what's your plan, Rudraksh? 7 languages. I know it's a hobby for you. What's the plan after so many languages?
Well, for now, I'm just studying. I have my exams in less than a week. I have to prepare for them. I unfortunately have not studied a lot, and I haven't been learning languages either for a long time. I will resume Arabic and maybe Bulgarian. I may decide to learn Russian before that. So Arabic because I'm in the UAE right now and I will need it, not just
Hmm.
for work. Of course, even to talk to people around me. Most people speak English and Hindi
But
is spoken.
it's always better that if you need
It is
speakers.
better, yes. You're in the Middle East. It is the official language here, one of the official languages. It is better you speak Arabic and learn more about the culture of the people that live here. Not just the people who are from the Emirates, as in Emirati citizens. You have people from the around the from all over the world here in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. It would be better if I do learn Arabic, and along with it, I also want to learn Portuguese, Italian, Punjabi. I have to prioritize which one I learn first, but Arabic is on the top of the list for now. I also want to get better in German.
Hmm. So my last question to you is, how many fake polyglots have you met? People who claim that they speak
Okay, polyglots.
5, 6 languages. Because I was with somebody, I learned Spanish with him. Then we worked together. He would do a basic level in that language, and then would claim that he can speak in that language. He would fool people uh, that he's a polyglot. But I was with him, so I know the reality. But have you met any fake polyglots?
The exact definition of a polyglot, I do not know. Many people
I think
have
it's
different
5 languages.
definitions.
If you speak 5 languages, then you become polyglot. Otherwise, you're a multilingual.
Have, yeah, some people say it's four, some people three. Anyway, I have met people who claim to speak languages. I'll not use the word polyglot. Someone who said I speak German, but they only knew a few words and phrases. Same for Spanish. I've reviewed CVs where they say Hindi, Urdu, Marathi, French, English. and it turns out they actually only fluently speak two of those languages, or have some degree of proficiency in the others. Most people that I've come across who say I speak French, Spanish, or German are those who've had that language in school.
True.
And the level that you have in schools in India is frankly not that high, and you are not taught
That's
to
not even
communicate.
A1. That's not even A1.
Yes, you can just say A1 because A1 is the level you start with.
Yeah.
Even 6 years after having learned the language.
Yes. Because you
It's-
can't go in beneath A1. So yeah, A1.
Yes. A1 is what they're at. And you speak to them in the language that they claim to speak, they will fumble. They'll not understand what you're trying to say to them. You have to speak in the manner that they've been taught the language, that exact same manner or somewhat similar to it, with a similar accent as well. If I speak to someone in French who says, I know French, I've learned it in school, and I speak to them in the accent that an actual French speaker would speak in, they would not understand.
Gone. So yeah, a lot of fake polyglots or multilingual or people claiming to speak languages. But yeah.
Many people, yes. And I don't think we can even blame them entirely, because when they're sitting for their exams, they are doing well.
Yeah, they
And that's
ace it.
because the exams have been
They ace
designed that way that they have been tested on only the things that they've been taught. But when you go beyond that, that's
And
when things
only
change.
writing.
Yes, only written language. Yes, that is also there.
Only.
Written
But
language
it's
is the
funny,
only thing that
languages
they're
are
comfortable
designed
with.
to communicate and you cannot communicate even after 6 years.
You cannot speak. I know. We're not taught to speak. Speaking is not something to focus on much,
True.
at least in India.
So anyway, Raksh, it was fun talking to you. I enjoyed the conversation for the second time. It was great, and I expect you to come to the podcast one more time. I think we have done what 1 hour 15 minutes of
It's
recording so
longer
far.
than last time.
Yeah, longer, better conversation, I would say. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I hope you also had a great time.
I did. Yes, I enjoyed it as well.
And once it's out there, hopefully people can see and uh, know the reality of languages in India, because if you search on the internet, there is not a lot of content around languages in it, like Indian content about languages.
But it's true. I think I should also make some content about it.
Sure.
You've,
You have the you
you've
have
been
all
covering a lot. I've been watching. You've been covering a lot about it.
So that's the plan, to bring languages to mainstream. I think engineering, your lawyers. Now it's the trend of lawyers where every other person is a lawyer. Earlier it was engineers.
Engineers,
Now
yes.
it's lawyers. Every other household you'll find a lawyer. So everything is coming to a mainstream. So I want to bring languages. I know it's a very humongous task and it won't happen, but I'll try my best to bring it to the mainstream
No, I
level.
think it can happen. I think it can happen. If you look at online, okay, I work in marketing, so I have some idea about it. I was just looking at people who search languages online. There are plenty of people in India who want to learn languages. But first is that motivation.
Motivation.
Not many people
It's a
will
2 year
have that
commitment. It's a
consistency
2 year
and
commitment
discipline.
easily.
It is. So if we can find engaging ways to get people to learn languages, it can work really well.
True.
We don't have engaging courses in India, or I don't even know if they're abroad. For India, I'm sure we don't have courses that make people have fun with the language, to immerse
At
themselves
least
and
I know
enjoy the process of learning.
In DU, JNU, Doon, all these so-called universities. Maybe in an institute, yes, because again, I'm not claiming it because I've studied in them, so I know.
I think it can be done.
Yeah. But anyways, Rudraksh, it was fun.
Yes.
Till the next time, Rudraksh. Bye bye.
Yes. Bye.
Thank you guys for watching the video till the end. If you have come so far, which means you're liking the video, so give a video a thumbs up and leave a comment. Tell me which language are you learning. Till the next one. Adios. So guys, if you're enjoying the videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank